Okay. All right. Here we go. Cool. So tell me about your project. How did you decide to do this?
So I am doing a GMO awareness project for my community. So as of now, so as GMOs or genetically engineered foods, that's really a debatable topic. It's a really hot topic, and many people have different opinions of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I just want to bridge the gap between the everyone's understandings and the actual facts about GMO.
Cool.
And I
Cool.
was also I'm really looking forward to like know more about you and like your perspective of genetically engineered foods.
Yeah. Well, my perspective will be primarily as a consumer because I don't work with any genetically modified organisms. I know a little bit about some of the techniques that are used, um, but it's not my area of research. So I looked at your questions, and they're pretty much designed for consumers. So uh, maybe I'll just add to that data set.
Yeah. So yeah, I was wondering, yeah, like what your understanding of GM food really is.
Just broadly,
Yeah.
it's kind of jargon if you think about it, because we've been genetically modifying our food for millennia. We've just been doing it slowly through conventional breeding. So, and we do the same thing with our domestic animals, even our pets, you know. So you look at something like a bulldog, that's been genetically modified from when it was a wolf. It just took conventional breeding and lots of generations and lots of time. So now we have techniques where we can kind of cheat and speed up that process. And so I think that's the difference between the genetic modifications we used to do through conventional breeding and what we can now do through recombination techniques or gene editing techniques. Uh, but yeah, anytime that we are selecting um, genes that were not present at first and we're introducing them for some desired trait, that would be genetic modification. We do it for all kinds of reasons: physiological fitness, nutritional status, pest tolerance. You know, the most common genetically modified crops in the United States are, I believe, at least this was true in the past, for tolerance to an herbicide. You know, you've heard of the Roundup Ready crops. So you have Roundup Ready soybeans and Roundup Ready corn. And uh, the idea is that you can spray the entire crop with an herbicide rather than selectively spraying the weeds, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting technique, which has led to increases in pesticide use. And then you have other genetic modifications that claim to reduce pesticide use, like BT crops. This is where there are some genes from a bacterium that have been introduced into the crops, and then the crops produce toxic molecules that, when consumed by insects, they kill the insect. So it's kind of like you have a built-in pesticide within the plant. And they do that with cotton, you know, for a lot of our clothing, corn, and so yeah, there's all different ways people do it. But the way I look at it is it's a shortcut. People are using technology for shortcuts. Yeah.
So do you consider genetically engineered food to be safe in general?
Safe is a difficult word to interpret. So you'd have to define safe. And most consumers, if you ask them what does safe mean, they would have a difficult time. It's more like a concept than it is like a well-defined word.
Yeah, so really like pros and cons. So like how would it have like a, both of a positive and negative impact on humanity and
Yeah.
really today? So I was just wondering your
I
opinion.
would say that remains to be seen. So we have both short-term and long-term safety questions about everything in our environment. So even some of our shampoos or deodorants or soaps, we may know that in the short term they're safe. In the long term, nobody knows. Um, so safety is a difficult concept. Um, I would not be confident telling you anything is really safe. You know, this shirt I'm wearing might be in the long term bad for me. I don't know. Or this I drink a lot of these sparkling waters, right? And so some people say, oh,
Yeah,
there's additives in there. Um, who knows? Safety is more of a concept than it is a definition. So I know I'm kind of like wiggling around the answer, but that's how science is. It's not black and white. It and we don't know. We a lot of times we don't know.
I see. So what do you think the level of responsibility is for farmers to ensure that GMOs are like at least safe for like consumption?
Yeah, I think again, it's difficult to know what safe really means.
Yeah,
In this country, we have the federal regulatory agencies of U.S. Department of Agriculture as well as the Environmental Protection Agency. And so they are usually concerned with short-term safety. So is something going to make you sick? Is something going to have short-term detriment to your health? And so I think that's the responsibility of the government. Um, Farmers, it's their responsibility to abide by the regulations that are set forth, but it's really difficult for anyone to answer the question, is this safe to consume every day for the rest of your life? Nobody knows. I work with pesticides, and the EPA is the regulatory agency. So they make sure they make sure that there are no short-term health problems associated with use, but they don't know what the long-term chronic issues are. So it's difficult for a producer like a farmer to ensure safety. They don't have that ability. So instead, they make an economic choice. Is it a good economic choice for me to produce a genetically modified crop? Or maybe it's a good economic choice for me to produce an organic crop, and really they're producing those for different uh, consumers. Different consumers may be attracted to different products. So no, I don't think it's the responsibility of the producer. I think it's the responsibility of the government, and I think the government should rely on research. And sometimes the research is not there. So then the difficult question is, what do you do when you don't have the research to answer the question? It's
I see.
difficult.
So how common do you think GMOs are in the US? I was just wondering.
Very common. So I just ate a granola bar, Nature Valley, you see?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was looking on it. I was like, huh, I wonder, I'm going to talk to Sudi. I wonder what this is going to say. So it says contains bioengineered food ingredients. So that's a different language, but it means the same thing. Um, it's jargon. Bioengineer, just by raising a plant or an animal, we're bioengineering it. But this really talks about genetic modification. Um, I think most things that contain corn in this country, a lot of things that contain soy, a lot of clothing that contains cotton are bioengineered. Very common.
So sometimes do you like sometimes purposefully like avoid GMO foods? Like
I,
just
I don't.
general?
I don't. But if someone wants to do that, I think it's within their right, and it makes sense to me if they're cautious, because we don't know what long-term effects are. It's within their rights, and it's perfectly reasonable. Personally, I don't. I buy products based on what I like to eat and how much money I have to spend.
So like, I was just wondering, do you like read like the labeling of genetically modified foods?
I
So
don't.
like you, oh, okay.
Yeah, I have friends and family that do, but I don't. I look more at the price, or I
Yeah.
think about the quality. I say, oh, I ate that brand before. It's really good. I'm going to get it again. Yeah.
So yeah, because so you even talked about the nature bar, the Nature Valley bar you just had, right? So that label said that it has bioengineered food. So I was just wondering, like, if I mean, because this is like a general thing, because like many people like do not really read the labels,
Yeah.
or it might be even misunderstood, really. So I was just wondering what you thought about it. Um, so have you ever bought organically grown foods?
Sure. All the time. Yeah.
I see.
But again, it has more to do with my perception of quality and the price.
I see. So like even if like the food product was labeled like GMO, you would still buy it, right?
Again, it depends on my perception of quality and price. So I think if there was some very overt and visible labeling that said this is genetically modified, I think it makes consumers think about that more. And that's good. They should know what they're eating. But for me personally, if I considered that food item to be of good quality, based on my previous experience, and it was the right price based on my money I have to spend, then I would purchase it.
And also, and this is for my project. So I was just wondering, so with all this information, so I was wondering how I could possibly like reach to my community by creating awareness, because like I've created a Facebook page and all of that. But I was just wondering in general, like a really good way to actually like effectively spread awareness to my whole community
Yeah, that's
about GMOs.
it's. I'm glad you're doing that. I think we all need to know more about the world around us. It's very difficult because there's so much information out there. Um, I think broadly, I want my community to uh, question the facts. I want my community to be skeptical in the way that scientists are trained to be skeptical. So rather than read the news headline and it says the issue is black or the issue is white, to understand that the issue is actually gray. And if you really want to, you can go and you can try to learn more, but it's complicated. The world around us is very complicated. So I think people have this idea that things are very simple, right, wrong, black, white, and it's not like that at all. So, my message to my friends and family is always get out there and, make your own conclusions. Look at your own information. Look at different sources of information, and be a lifelong learner and a skeptic.
So really the pros and cons of GMO, right?
Yeah, and the pros and cons of everything. And yeah, if something is important to you, then you should learn the facts rather than just you know you should never rely on just one source of information. um, I think a lot of people, they make decisions based on emotion. They feel a certain way about a certain word or a certain idea, and that's okay. But they should also be investigating the facts that are out there, and sometimes there are no facts out there. So they have to understand we don't always know. Scientists don't always know.
So like for example, if one was to say that the benefits of GM foods like outweigh its risks, so that would really depend, right? So based
Yeah.
on what.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe they have come to that conclusion for themselves. So, you know, it's really about perceptions of risk and perceptions of benefit. If you don't have clear data, if you don't have data that show this is the risk, and it's very easy to define. Without that, it's all about perception of risk. And so everybody has the ability and the right to decide this is my perception of benefit, this is my perception of risk, and I make a decision that's best for me and my family. We can all do that.
So like for example, with you, so you look like more on the quality of the food and like the price, right? So that's just your way.
Correct. Yeah. And it's worth noting that a lot of people, they would love to eat organic food. They would love to eat uh, nutritious fruit and vegetables, but they don't always have the money for it. So I think this issue is not even on the radar of some people without money. They just, they have a little bit of money. They have to buy as much food as possible to feed their family. So it's interesting. It's almost like a privileged issue. When you have privilege, you can consider this issue.
So I think that's it really. So thank you for your time. I really enjoyed knowing about your opinion, and I learned a lot from you. So really thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course, of course. And let me know if you have more questions. Send me an
Yeah,
email
definitely.
anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stop recording.